Welcome to the Yeoman Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Graham. With me today is Nassim Taleb. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much. Actually, thank you for joining me in this room of books.
Yes, we are in your. The books are the same, but the library is new. Is that right?
The library. Yeah. Everything on one floor in one large room. So and you cannot believe something I've discovered. I had the intuition long, but you can hold a book. You don't open it. You remember what was in it. So the book is an object. Mm-hmm. It's not some abstract information. It's a physical object. You hold it, and then you know when you read it, all right? For example, you know when you read it, and you've taken what you found in it. So this is the book. And this is why it won't be replaced by AI. By electronic text.
I went all in on the Kindle and e-readers and all those things. I don't know, maybe whenever, they were like 15 years ago. And 5 years ago, I realized I wasn't remembering anything I read.
Exactly. Yeah. So I had
it's terrible because I got rid of all my paper books, except for the ones I really, that were important to me. And,
so this is exactly the story of my Kindle. Jeff Bezos came up on the stage and he had the Black Swan on Kindle. And so then I got a call from my publisher. Said two things happened. Said what? He says there's bad news and good news. I said what's the bad news? Bad news, we're out of business. All right, what's the good news? Good news is the Black Swan was the one used by Bezos. So then I had that problem with the discussion was Kahneman. It was all excited about the Kindle. And I reminded them of the method of the Loci, or depending how you pronounce your Latin. There's a Greek mnemonic method. If you remember things based on objects. Mm-hmm. You want to remember a poem, and that was the trick. And then you look at the stones, and you remember. Mm-hmm. For example, I was in Central Park in New York last week, walking with one of my colleagues, and we hit a spot when about 7 years ago he gave me some bad news. Some, of course, that were local bad news, mm-hmm. And I remembered. Just by looking at the water fountain in Central Park, I remember the conversation. So physically, we're embedded in 3D, not 2D. We're not. So, and when we're talk about AI, if you want to still talk about AI, I'll talk about dimensionality. So adding that dimension, and then the haptic dimension, and maybe another dimension, the smell, makes a huge difference. So, of course, you don't remember much. And you don't have the same experience. Here I have the novels that I've read, some of them as a child, the ones as a child I have in Lebanon, but you hold the novel and you have the experience. You don't have that with a movie. You don't have that with a piece of music. You have that with the book. Mm-hmm. So the entire, what we call Western civilization, in fact, is, let's call it, Middle Eastern European civilization. Okay, it started from the writing and Sumer, and that object, so a written thing is an object. And remarkably, I'm going to give a lecture online, and I had a book about Umberto Eco's library. I had a book that was given to me by Umberto Eco. Saying, hey, the book is a real object. Sorry?
I saw him over here.
No, the book is upstairs. I read it because I'm rereading it, where he's saying the book is a real object for another reason. But let me give you one thing here. Keep talking to the camera. I'm going to go. Let me, you see, I don't particularly like this author, Steven Pinker. But look what I have here. This book. He's actually not part of my library. There's a room there where I have where I put the profane, and there are details. So when I'm writing a text, I want to reference to stuff. Okay. Right. So I realized these books were in New York. I went to New York and I said, okay, I'm going to pull the book and reference the ideas. Guess what? The minute I saw the book, I had pretty much. It's as if I was closer to reading it again.
Yeah.
And I didn't even need to look at my notes. Just the feel of the book in the original form in which I've read it.
So this is a little tangent, but the way you take notes in books as you're reading, you go through, you'll get to a page, it looks like you might circle or put something on that particular page, and then you'll come back and fill up the blank pages on the front and back with the page. And
no. What happens? I'm reading and I notice something. Okay, it's page 341. I will circle it and then put here sequentially on what page. So what I thought I'd be doing is read my sequential notes and have an idea of what I got out of the book. But in fact, it turns out that all I have to do is touch the book, and I'm closer to the remembrances come more vividly.
Right.
See? So no, I have this in mind because I went back to Pinker because I was analyzing his work, you see, and I ended up not writing anything because it's not worth it. I should realize after this, but just Pinker's like practically all the books that I've read have notes on them. Yeah. And I don't need to. I just need to know that I have notes on them.
It was
the book
holding
is a
in your hand the making of the note, the touching the book,
the whole experience. So we live in higher dimension, and the entire academic project is to reduce the dimension.
What do you mean by that?
It makes things a little more abstract. Most of the errors in politics come from that.
Abstraction?
Abstraction. A little 1 degree, or usually 10 degrees more, but just 1 degree more than needed. And you think, hey, you know what? We're going to increase education. People like books. Let's have mass education via Kindle, right? Or via some electronic. It's not going to work. It's not the same thing. You see, organically systems test how things work. But when you come top down, you come in with this intellectual idea and try to apply it to reality, and then reality may not agree with you, you see. And I realized that I had this intuition from that conversation with Kahneman, and then came back to Kahneman and reminded the method of the Lothian. There's actually a book here about the book here. Look, I'm looking at it. You see that I remember what's in it. It's about a mnemonist, someone who remembered everything.
Yeah.
And actually at some point he had flaws in his memories because there was a cloud, right, over hiding part of what he wanted to remember. So what was associated with his memory, what he associated physically was his memory of something not related. So the mnemonist by Luria, is very famous in psychology. And then Kahneman said, "Oh, you're right. You know what? I would wait before." Going further on this discussion, and then of course about 6 months later he was sold because he couldn't remember anything on a Kindle.
So two tangents I want to take. When before we sat down, we were looking at your literature section, and and I want to come back. I want to come back to this and to AI, but you said that you don't read fiction anymore.
I stopped systematically reading fiction at age 30.
And you mentioned and you didn't really elaborate on why.
First of all, modern fiction is noisy, all right? So you don't know if it's, reading Dostoevsky, you know that's going to be useful for you in the future. But reading, if I named the author, you wouldn't remember them because they were just like a little... a small little, noise, a little bit of noise in the history of literature. So I invested myself too much when I was, up till then in reading fiction. And now I realize some of it was useful, not the same, but historical book or real classics, you remember them forever. So it associated weakly with the Lindy idea.
Do you mean to say that great fiction great new fiction is so rare?
By definition, rare. But look at it, when you take the 18th century, you don't select. I mean, I don't know how many were published. You don't take everything that was published. You take so the odds of hitting on a piece that's going to survive the test of time is very low.
Right.
So reading systematically new books. Take the 100 best books of the New York Times. Every year they do it, or they used to do it. Not one of them probably will be in print 5 years later. So it's very rare for books to survive.
So let me make sure I understand. And you may not have, it may just be something that you just are not interested in anymore, but is part of the reason that you don't find yourself reading fiction because you've read, near as you can tell, all the great fiction that's out there, and a new great work of fiction is so rare that
it could be that my mindset changed, and then I became hungry for science. And true fiction, you can't really say fiction doesn't have philosophy in it. Often does. It doesn't have real, as they say, the names and the dates are wrong, everything else is right. Whereas in history books, typically the names and the dates are correct and everything else is wrong, or biographies. So, and I myself write fiction, I have fictional characters. For me, they're more realistic than and also you don't hurt anybody by focusing on one single character, except a few assholes that I name en passant.
A few.
Yeah, but I don't go too much into them. But Fat Tony developed, as a character, and he's probably more real than people in a lot of biographies.
So you went for a period of time where you were displaced from your library, and
the last 7 years.
Yeah, and
part time. Yes,
and it's something in the years we've known each other. You mentioned it a lot, and it was weighing on you.
Yeah, because I wrote all my books when I had my library. You see, and then suddenly I had to split time between New York and Atlanta, starting with COVID. And I didn't realize that it'd be like, sort of like unplugged, feeling unplugged without that.
Dislocated.
Exactly. So physical books are important, and it's not the information in them, it's the whole package and the way we receive them. And also gives you more energy, having been surrounded by books that you like and books you plan to read, especially books you plan to read. It gives you energy.
I wonder, I've never been a vinyl, like a record guy. I've never been a vinyl guy. And my son and I were on a trip a couple weeks ago, and the Airbnb we stayed in had records. And that was it was a remote kind of place. It just had records and a turntable. And it reminded me a lot of books.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah,
it could be that. Yeah, you get the experiences enhanced by having the object. Yeah. But it's, of course, with a book, because a book you don't need a tool to read it. You just, if you have eyes, you can read a book.
Would it in here? So you packed up all your books and they sat in storage for a while, and then you put them back up, and you have various categories, or they're organized in a certain way. Did you organize them the same way that you had previously?
No, because I don't need to organize. I remember where every book is somehow.
If someone came in
and asked for a given book, I figure out there's themes. This side, mathematics in the back, philosophy here. I have history here, sort of modern history here, ancient history to the right, ancient languages to the right. Classics visibly behind us. But I can figure. So I know it's a big area, so I don't have to make an effort, like almost cheating. It's sort of indexed, but cross-grained. But I can. But if you really like a book, you know where to find it.
If someone came in and rearranged all your books,
I would go nuts.
Yeah.
I would go nuts. But I was away. I mean, the books were packed. They were in New York. They were only packed for about 1 year, less than 1 year, 7 months, 8 months, and that was a period where I was completely unproductive, because then I could still go to New York and get books. So, and then also have the books in Lebanon that I've kept are the fiction books that I read as a child in the same format, and you get the experience back. You never get that with a movie. You never get that. I mean, you have some remembrances of the experience.
It occurs to me, I have a number of friends that have the big display that functions both as a TV, but when it's not being used as a TV, it's over the mantle or whatever. They project art on it, or it displays art that rotates through, and it just occurs to me that's a little bit like digital books. It's
I don't like anything electronic outside of immediate functionality. Like the internet has its uses.
Yeah.
But this is a real thing. Right?
When you write,
yeah.
You use a word processor.
Well, unfortunately, I use a word processor. I'm addicted to a word processor. Some people have reverted to writing, and thanks to electronics, they're writing longhand.
Yeah, right.
Longhand. So we go back with Lindy back to writing longhand, and the experience is much more pleasurable. I remember, I mean, I maintained notes for years. All my notes were longhand. See, and it's not like it's not on and I had 20 volumes of notes, and I destroyed them before, so nobody would find them. No, simply, why did I destroy them? Someone told me, Salman Rushdie sold his papers to Emory. If you want to sell your papers one day, I said, me selling my papers? Everything that you write should be in your book, all right? So those auxiliary fetishistic stuff. So I decided to destroy them. So I went through what was unused there and destroyed the rest.
What was that? Was that kind of like a ceremony or something? Was it?
No. I just destroyed them. I just destroyed them. Nothing. No ceremony. But but the experience of writing longhand, in parallel with, I had notes. You take notes.
Yeah.
Longhand. The comparative experience, gave me a lot of information about my own preferences.
Yeah.
And that is soothing to write longhand.
I went way digital, over-indexed on digital for a long period of time, and came back, and that's where I've been now.
Here you remember your own notes.
Yeah, much more. Even if I never look at them again. If you just look at the thing, you remember the notes. I rarely actually go back and look at my notes. It's just that the writing them this way. And I'm not saying anything profound. Lots of people have said this. When we started, I forgot to introduce you, and I meant to introduce you as a farmer.
Yeah, as a farmer, olive oil.
Yeah.
You tasted my olive oil.
I have. Yeah, it's. I have never tasted olive oil like that before. It was in the best possible way. It was
Okay, so
all other olive oil is now. I feel like it's a
So
it's an abstraction of real olive oil.
No, the real. So what happens with olive oil is idiosyncratic, just like wine. And I don't have a lot of production. I planted the trees 8 years ago on the land that was zoned commercial in Lebanon. It was very expensive compared to, it's irrational.
It's right by your family home. Is that right?
It's not far. Okay. So my ancestral village, not far from there. So I planted trees. The soil had never seen any chemical because it was at the time it was completely neglected for 100 years. So I planted trees there, and then I figured out that you can have an idiosyncratic taste because all the trees are siblings, and it's the same soil. So it's not a blend of a lot of producers in the area. And then I discovered that good olive oil like that, given that its commercial value, it doesn't pay to do it commercially. Usually, you never see the market, and because you can't scale it. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you scale it, then it's no longer it becomes a blend. You can't really produce the same soil, something with idiosyncratic taste, and I know the taste of my own olive oil is idiosyncratic compared to others, and some cousins and stuff do the same thing, and their olive oil also has specific taste.
When you say the trees are siblings or are they twins? Are they grafted or are they grown?
They're from the same. The siblings in the sense they're from the same species. I forgot what they call it.
Yeah, I think it's species.
Species, yeah. You bought them, so they were siblings. They were not twins, but it makes no difference. It's like it's the soil that determines, because it's a species. They're not going to have a lot of genetic idiosyncrasies.
As you know, I just had my first honey harvest.
Yes.
And my observation from this whole experience is that I've gotten to know, I'm a total novice, but I've successfully successfully harvested honey. And my observation from this experience is you can't really scale honey production. It's idiosyncratic.
Anything good, if you're obsessed with scaling, anything scaled suffers from what we call scale transformation. You see, anything scaled will change in not quantity, but not just quantity, but in quality as well. It becomes a different thing.
What are things that
are different from an individual?
Like in thinking about the concept of anti-fragile, and there are things that gain from disorder, but then there's some things that don't. Are there things that don't experience scale transformation?
Yeah.
Or the things what improves without scale, what improves with scale?
On paper, you see, if people are obsessed with numbers, efficiency increases with scale. Like, for example, cities are more efficient than villages. Okay, and there's for example, life expectancy or lifespan. Forget the notion of expectancy, because we'll see why. An elephant and a Tuscan shrew have the same number of beats.
Heartbeats.
Heartbeats. The elephant is about 25 to 45 a minute, and a Tuscan shrew is like 800 a minute. You see? So it means one will live a couple of years, the other will live 50 years. So, because it's more efficient to be an elephant than to be a rat. Okay. On the other hand, we don't have as many elephants as rats. So when a lot of people got involved in scaling, like West, they use this example, but they failed to realize that we got a lot more rats than we do elephants, because elephants are more fragile. Because with scale comes what happens, that as you get bigger, a lot of things, let's say you have a bigger company, you have the same personnel department. You don't need to have two companies merge. They probably would save 75% on the personnel department. They probably would save 100% on some things. You see, from doubling after doubling, 100% of the new one. So in other words, things can be redundant when you double, but then the survival organization is not, the data doesn't show that large organizations survive longer. As a matter of fact, we don't, otherwise, think about it, we have one large organization.
Right.
So we don't have that. We have high mortality rate. Up until techno-feudalism, we had a high mortality rate of large companies. So the scaling, the mechanism that I investigated scientifically, mostly the nonlinearity of the scale. Like, for example, if you grow in 3D, but your contact to the floor is in 2D. So you're going to have wider and wider feet. So if you're a microscopic or small human would look very different from a real human. And if we were 5 ton, the the size of elephants, we wouldn't look like humans. We would look like elephants.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have very large legs. You have to be low in gravity. You have a trunk. So a lot of things change with scale, and these are we call it isometry, and there are a lot of laws, and nobody can understand these laws because rationally you should scale at 3/4. In fact, you scale at 2/3 or vice versa. So we don't have an idea how things scale. There are other things that may enter, but we don't need to. I mean, we just have to understand that things get more fragile as they get bigger. That's one effect. Now, in society, you have other effects. The governance changes as you scale. The relationship between people change. Think about running into the same person 100 times a day versus 100 persons one time a day.
Mm-hmm.
The relationship would be different.
Mm-hmm.
So in cities, the relationship between humans is different. It's more abstract, more intellectual. You're dealing with citizens, whereas here in your village, there's Tom and Joe, all right,
mm-hmm.
and Barbara. So you have individuals. So you become more abstract. You have more fairness in cities, but at the same time, you lose in governance because you have to transfer it. You have to be more centralized, and you got to transfer a lot of things to the state that normally are dealt with organically in the community. A lot of things. So large cities are very different, are not like a village, expanded village. And a lot of people have studied their benefits, and I focused in Antifragile on the defects. Mm-hmm. And I think it was even I started working on that way before. They came up with the idea of, it's great to have scaling to cities because they scale. It's great, so they didn't realize that it makes things more fragile. The supply chain is much more fragile than before. Mm-hmm. Before, I mean, virtually you had no supply chain. There was no chain. There was a supply. But another scale transformation that's very counterintuitive to many, and it came with Mandeville, the fable of the bees, is if you put vicious people together, that was way before Adam Smith, by the way, they may produce a positive outcome for society. So Smith toned it down, and he said that you have the greed of individuals being translated into a virtuous contribution to society. So you can probably, you have to take with a grain of salt. A lot of these economic models take with a grain of salt, except for the fact that there's indeed a scale transformation. That under competition, a lot of things change. And some people have studied markets with zero intelligence operators operating under sets of rules, and you end up with a very efficient price mechanism. So we have, there are scale transformation, but where people have not examined it is with science. Everybody is still stuck to the Socratic idea that we get together and try to convince one another of our initial standpoint, our initial beliefs, and update beliefs progressively to converge to the truth. That's not how it works. You don't convince individuals. You have a collection of people with different beliefs and different interests who always want to win the argument. They're not going to be swayed by anything else. But the outcome eventually is a contribution. So science, for example, scientists don't collaborate, they hate one another. It's worse than trade. I mean, people in finance collaborate a lot more. People in commerce collaborate a lot more. They know it's not a zero-sum game. Science individually is a zero-sum game. There's one Nobel, one this, okay? They don't collaborate. But what happens is that science advances because some asshole comes in, is obsessed with another asshole. He wants to harm him. And that's how we get new stuff.
Prove him wrong.
Exactly. Prove him wrong, and then
persuade other people that he's wrong.
You have a new result, and goes that way. It's not like people collaborating. People hold on to whatever initial beliefs they form, and everything becomes confirmatory and person. So that's the scale transformation. But I know you're localist, and you have compelling arguments for localism. But with of course, you have to take all these models with a grain of salt. The benefit of localism is you think you have more governance. It's not necessarily so. There's this idea that people vote with their feet. People don't vote with their feet. They have a grandchild here. They have, friendships around the corner. They're not gonna. Economists try to have this abstract, have that notion of the human being was more abstract than actually he or she actually would be. So they don't vote with their feet. So effectively, sometimes some people are stuck with bad governance in a village simply because they want to stay there, and with manipulation of that. Finally, when we talk about lobbies love centralization, and scale. Of course, with scale, you need to centralize, and because they have to spend very little money to get a very large effect.
It's a high return on investment.
It's a very high return on investment.
I want to talk about lobbies, and we have skipped over AI, and I want to go back to something that you mentioned in passing a few minutes ago about techno-feudalism, and you mentioned it as an aside and kind of a throwaway comment. Will you elaborate on what you meant there?
By techno-feudalism, okay. So, what made America great, or made it great up until, I don't know, it still is the fact that it's not the fact. People think that we have to worry about equality. Nobody ever. If you ask poor people in a country where there's inequality, what would you like to see? Oh, bigger fridge. Okay? That's how they think about it. They don't want to. People who are concerned with inequality are people in the sort of upper middle class, and they read People's Magazine or something, and they're envious, right? Okay, so what makes a system virtuous is not equality in wealth, but probabilistic equality. Meaning that, and also opportunity. So so for a system to work well, and this is where America works great, that you have a non-sticky top.
What do you mean by that?
Non-sticky top. Now, that people get to the top, they become more vulnerable because of scaling. Scaling makes you more fragile, and that was the case. So if you take, and I mentioned it, I think, in Skin in the Game. If you take the Forbes 500, I don't know if it still exists, richest 1980 versus say 30 years later, 2010, very, very, like 10% of the families are still on it. Take European one. And in 2010, the wealthiest looked like a survey of the Renaissance or even medieval world. Right. So
there's
you
not
realize,
a lot of churn.
Not a lot of churn. So what made America great is people failed when they got big. And what made Europe bad is when you go up, now you invade governments, you have your friendship, you hire from government, and so you're big, and you feel you can stay there for a long time.
The lobbyists, I guess, do a lot of jobs, but among a lot of different jobs, but among their jobs would be to help those who've made it there, entrench their position.
Exactly. So the way I measure fairness is because if you want to climb, someone else has to come down, is with the probability of failure. Got to remain constant. It's sort of like in life, the probability of death increases. You see, as you age, by definition, probability of death increases. I don't mind. I don't want it to increase in companies. Just remain constant. In fact, it decreases after a while, and that's not healthy.
What's really the probability is really high for the youngest business.
A failure.
Very high, yeah, of failure.
But you want maybe not necessarily zero failure, but you want a healthy rate of failure for small businesses, but you want it to fail early.
Sure.
But you want a high rate of failure at the top. The thing in Europe, what they did is use labor law. I would say, hey, you know what? We're not going to fire 1 million people. See? So they hijack the government and get whatever they want and stay around. In the US, we didn't have that. So this is what I'm saying.
So you're speaking in the past tense. You said you're speaking in the past tense. You're saying in the US we didn't have that.
I'm not sure that large corporations today are as fragile as they should be. You remember when we almost broke Microsoft? I don't know if the government would be capable of doing anything remotely similar. Google. So this is and then plus there is the other element that in the past, corporations that made it to the top were still just local. I mean, like AT&T was a local company. And now Google dominates the search engine in Zimbabwe.
So by techno-feudalism, do you mean an environment where those who are at the top are entrenched in the top? They do not risk.
And then
their risk of leaving is much lower.
And there are other property feudalism. Basically, the other people are in a situation very close to slavery. They're forced to work, and they're happy that they can make ends meet, and so you own them. You don't have to have slaves. You can just have. So the labor has not increased in proportion in many cases. Okay, and it led to more inequality. Now, let me give you another thing that may shock people about scaling. Where do you think? Because I ask this question a lot. What do you think is the most libertarian environment to operate in today?
I would guess if you're a very small business or a startup, I would guess China.
Yes. So what happened is that they let you grow,
do whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, one is they can't enforce the law. It's not necessarily because that's their idea, but they're smart enough to see the effect. We tried communism, where the communism applied to small people, and of course, big fortune, and visibly it failed.
Right.
Socialism, I can safely say, in whatever form it was applied, has not worked. Okay, so or you take a country that's socialist next door.
I want to come back to that. I would say socialism hasn't scaled.
So whatever. So let's say that these things didn't work. But when you think of China, well, they have the reverse of capitalism,
right?
The reverse of socialism, where so long as you don't have $1 billion, right, you're free to do whatever you want. $1 billion, you're subject to confiscation by the state.
Right.
It becomes a form of communism at the top. So, I mean, that shouldn't bother you if you're not at the top. And that's the way to go to remedy techno-feudalism. But what comes with it is dictatorship environment. But then you think about it is, where would you have a better life, right, as an entrepreneur? There or Europe? In Europe, it's the exact opposite. When you're Berlusconi at the top, you can violate any law. When you're small, if you have a small business, you're overregulated by not just, and also the subsidiarity that they apply make it even worse because you're going to be regulated by the town, by the county, by the country, by Brussels, by this. So crazy. But if you're big, no, you call the shots.
Where do you think the United States, if there's a spectrum, is it just two?
Halfway.
Yeah, the United States.
Halfway between China. Yeah. So far, halfway between China and Europe.
When did China adopt that? So my understanding is that it's just to summarize, that in China, if you are an entrepreneur who wants to start something, it's largely can do whatever you want.
Yes.
Until you reach a certain scale where the government of China views what you're doing as important and consequential and matters, and then they essentially own you, or you have an obligation to essentially, I guess you're existing at their discretion, or they have an interest in how you operate. I don't know how is that a reasonable description?
Yeah, but there's more. They get visits by, you see the idea.
Yeah.
Or you could be put in jail.
Right.
Or you could be, there are a lot of things that happen to you.
Yeah.
But
and all your data that you're collecting on all your customers and all those things,
it's all totally,
it belongs to them now.
It belongs to them. Yeah. So the whole thing, that what's better for the individual, it's the 1%, not even the 1% regulated by state. It's 99% libertarianism. Or would you rather have that formula or the reverse? You see?
I would rather have this. I've never been to China, and I'm speaking out of ignorance, which has never stopped me before. But my sense is, though, you have an environment where companies becomes large and then subsumed by the government. So all the largest companies, all the largest operators are essentially branches of the government.
Yes. But let's say how much of the economy is that?
Yeah, I don't know how much it is.
It still remains a tiny.
Does it? Yeah.
It's not a dominant. It's not a dominant portion of the economy, and we have to look at numbers before our guys there figure it out. But it's a very bad ratio to look at share of government to GDP. In the U.S., it's lower than Europe. Depends also when you include education or not. Like France included education, so government to GDP ratio is almost 57% or something. So
France includes government in education in the government. Yeah.
Because it's a government program. So you have to, the definition of government is also, do you include municipalities or not? Or basically, if you have a golf club community, well, is it government or not? It is government. Okay, how do you add these things up? And you have cultural differences about definition of government. So you have the hurdles that make it difficult to compare. But overall, government today is about 10 times everywhere the proportion of GDP in 1900.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Do you realize that? So even when we talk about socialist France, it was much less socialist than non-socialist France. You see, because the government was 5% of GDP, 10% of GDP at the max.
Well, and two, you have the tax revenue. Something I was looking at recently was sort of the history of tax revenue by level of government. And in the United States, the local governments collected more tax than the federal government until the Civil War. It's the first time the federal government collected more tax.
Because of war.
Because the government
was there for war. I mean,
exactly.
small states are not into war.
And then in the 1870s, it dipped back down again. Guess when was the next time the federal government?
Of course.
It was World War I. Yeah.
But
and then it dipped down again. And then when was the next time?
We can do cross-sectionally. What's the country in Europe that hasn't engaged in war the last 200 years?
Switzerland? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and how do you pay taxes in Switzerland?
To your local canton?
And they negotiate with the federal government, and then it goes to the whatever left over.
Yeah.
So the bulk of your taxes are local.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you have to think about also that when people tell you that we spend $1 trillion in defense, no. Because you got a lot of liabilities that come from veterans,
right?
A lot of that. Plus, you have
and
a lot of
equipment maintenance and like,
and you have a lot of indirect proportion of GDP that is associated with defense.
Right.
With some benefits. I mean, you discover the internet, but still, the way
and defense is important. It's important.
I mean, it's important, but depends. But the problem is, the defense is important. But the minute you give people the job of getting involved in defense, they will find ways to distort. Again, the anything abstract like defense can be overinterpreted.
Sure.
You see, anyone who doesn't have skin in the game in anything will offer her or his interpretation of things and distort.
Can we turn back to lobbyists? This would be a good segue.
That's my night.
Well, I do want to, I don't want to, we skipped over AI. We want to talk about AI. Lobbyists or AI?
We'll start with lobbyists and then go to AI.
Let's do that, yeah. So to that point right there, the point that you were just making, that was a good segue. What was the point that you said it was something that you wanted us to chat about as it related to lobbyists?
Well, there are many levels. The first one is it makes lobbyists make the so-called democracy no longer democracy, visibly, because it's no longer a one person, one vote. It becomes a $1 one vote.
Mm-hmm.
Visibly, you know what's happening in Congress. 80% of Americans aren't crazy about Israel. 70%, 80%, something crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, aren't crazy. It's not like they're neutral but they're not in favor. But
51% of under 30-year-old Jews
are not favorable. Yeah, okay. But look at Congress.
Yeah.
Congress is completely different. Why? Because they elect people to make sure people are elected. That's lobbying.
Mm-hmm.
And the Secretary of State currently was chosen after an interview with a member of the Israeli government.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he likes Israel. So that's not democracy anymore. Okay. So
to the response of the kind of the free speech question and your investments or your spending to persuade politicians is a version of your speech.
Well, this is where we have you don't necessarily have laws against it. Have to have laws, but you can put boundaries. You can. Okay, it's a problem we should address. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
because the gap is too big. I'm not just talking about Israel. Monsanto controlled so many Republican members of Congress, and even Hillary. I called her Hillary Monsanto Malmaison when she was running for election. So you have a lobbyist can really do a lot of things. Okay, a lot of bad things. There may be a formula to prevent lobbyists from warping the democratic process. I mean, what I'm calling democracy is not like
is it?
It's democracy is in its old-fashioned sense of the word, not as a political system that's different from republicanism.
Would we care about the power of lobbyists if the impact of their influence didn't have such an enormous blast radius? Like with a diminutive federal government, then
I wrote about it in Skin in the Game. I wrote about Skin in the Game. Like, so Swiss don't have the problem of lobbyists, although they do have Nestle
mm-hmm.
that lobbied in airports and managed to lobby to prevent try to get a water fountain in Europe. You see, because they sell water, they want to make sure you pay for your water.
Yeah, I was thinking chocolate.
Even here in Atlanta, by the way, you want a scandal? I've been going to Lenox Square for my afternoon coffee with friends for years. And by the bathroom, there's a water fountain and a Dasani vending machine.
Yeah.
And the water fountain hasn't worked in years. But next to the Dasani vending machine for water. So the Swiss aren't immune completely.
The Dasani person's coming. And
Either the Dasani or the person who installed it or bribed someone. Okay, so you have a warping of a good functioning, healthy functioning of society.
But if that Dasani thing, if Dasani happened to be just an Atlanta company, and it wouldn't be a big deal.
For the Atlantans.
It would be a small thing, and then you'd know the Dasani guy, you'd run into him in the grocery store, and you'd be like, you need to stop messing with
but the person pays $3 would identify, if you have to pay $3 for water. When you're thirsty, you're going to pay any price, but you will identify the culprit. But Atlanta is a big town, and Lenox Square is a public thing, so you don't see the same person twice.
Right.
So it is a different... So lobby, let's forget this water thing, anecdote, take in general, that the job of the lobbyist is to take things away from citizens and distort matters in favor of the company that is paying them. That's so to have disproportionate representation of that interest group in yes.
There's a group in Georgia. If you're a real estate developer or builder and you're trying to get a permit to build a neighborhood or a large project, it might take you. Your permit might be totally acceptable. Like there's nothing objectionable at all in your permit. You can apply for the permit. It might take you a year, might take you a long time before you actually go through the process and get your approval. Obviously, that adds an enormous amount of cost to development that does not...
And to us, to citizens.
Exactly. Yeah. And so there are a group of builders and developers who've gotten together. They're all like local, I say local, I mean local to Georgia, closely held companies, large and small. They have hired a lobbyist, and the lobbyist is effectively working at the state level to advocate for state reform to obligate the municipality to be responsive. So that's a lobbyist. That would be
maybe, but the fact that when we can hire, it's a mechanism isn't working properly. It's not. A mechanism can hire a bad guy to distort democracy at such a scale is not healthy. So a lot of countries didn't have lobbyists until recently and function properly. You may have, instead of having a lobbyist being hired, you may have these people go petition, you see? So the idea that maybe there's a difference between a group petitioning, right, and convincing the public that the civil servants are acting in a way that's harmful to anybody who's not a civil servant in their group, a skin in the game. But in general, the process of the lobbying process isn't healthy. So you have a lot of other forms of advocacy and stuff like that can form naturally, but there's got to be a rule distinguishing between a healthy advocate and a lobbyist.
That reminds me of Georgia history. It reminds me of James Oglethorpe and the founding of Georgia.
Yeah.
He was an idealist, and he had a few rules for Savannah. When he started Savannah, there was to be no prostitutes, no liquor, no slavery, and no lawyers. And people are like, they laugh about the lawyer thing, but his argument, and it was not unique to him, people were making the argument at the time that was essentially the argument that you just presented about lobbyists, that one should always petition on their own behalf for anything.
I like that idea, and as a matter of fact, I'm writing about the difference between a lawyer and that is an advocate lawyer, that category, and a judge.
Mm-hmm.
And the propagandist would be on the left, a judge on the right, the scholars would be on the right.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, someone who looks at the case with zero vested interest and makes a decision. And but lawyers are identified as representing one side, and their credibility is low.
And by lawyer, you would mean litigator. Really.
Litigators, or advocates.
Mm-hmm.
Litigators or advocates. So in that category, but even a regular lawyer, when in negotiation, is not going to represent the other side. And an advocate is someone fighting for you. They're not going to go say, yeah, but my client doesn't deserve more than this.
Mm-hmm.
They'll never do that.
Mm-hmm.
The rules of our profession define, and that's the scaling thing, that we have lawyers fighting one another in court, and you get the synthesis of lawyers. They're not like working towards the truth collaboratively, but antagonistically. You see?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the lobbyists, you don't get that. But say, okay, you have a Monsanto is lobbying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they have the powers. Who's going to be on the other side? You have to have a grassroots. It's a different, much harder to organize. It's a different form of.
I was trying to come up with the counter to that, and I feel like it's somewhere that the people on the other side are like plaintiffs attorneys. Do class action lawsuits do a lot of that?
What happened. Yeah, what happened in the end is the legal system in America destroyed Monsanto, because the legal system, the lobbying in Congress works well, but their liability belongs to the judiciary. See, not and of course you have the laws, and you have courts, and you can't really game a court, and that's what destroyed them.
Mm-hmm.
The court system. Thanks to this is why I explained
they had no liability. They had no legislative liability insulation.
There we go, and that's thanks to tort laws. And I was explaining that the other hand, that's Ralph Nader. I dedicated to Ralph Nader and Ron Paul, because I wanted to switch away from regulation into torts.
I wonder if they ever spent any time together.
They did once. I saw them. I saw them both in the same circumstance. So what happened with you cannot game tort laws because you don't know in the Anglo-Saxon system, which actually even the ancient Roman system, the law isn't clear beforehand. So when you have little uncertainty about what's permissible or not, you stay away from it because you're risk averse.
Mm-hmm.
See, if you have uncertainty about what is the definition of speeding, you stay away from speeding but if you know it's 60 miles per hour, you're going to go to 60 miles per hour.
Well, it would be, I would say, the person who has something to lose would stay away from it.
Well, so that's under tort law. Mm-hmm. Under tort law, tort law destroyed Monsanto, destroyed hurt GM, hurt McDonald's, a lot of other people, because tort laws have a disproportionate payout to an injured person, not because the person was injured and that's to compensate the person, but to punish the company for having done harm in general.
It's treble damages for fraud and
these kind of things. So it's punitive. So the tort system works a lot better than regulation. And what China doesn't have tort system, but they don't have regulation. Okay, it's a Wild West, up to some level so far, but
and then up to some level, and then it's not.
Exactly. But Europe has opted for regulation.
Yeah.
And then one day I debated for an entire hour in Las Vegas that idiot Larry Summers, and he couldn't get the notion of skin in the game. He could not get it. He was an academic.
Sorry, had to go to Las Vegas.
Yeah, but it was an interesting debate because I figured out that I was then writing skin in the game, and I figured
this was
out
like
2017, something like that, 17 or something, and then I realized that that there's someone who's going to be a bureaucrat or a professor or an economist sort of built to not get certain things.
Oh, you think?
Yeah.
You think they begin that way? They don't.
They
become
that way. They begin that way. And people become academics not by choice.
Almost like an autistic inability to have a certain
exactly.
thing. Yeah.
So becoming an academic is an elimination, not by elimination, not by choice. Because if you're, why would become an academic if you can be in the right?
There are plenty of academics who can understand.
Maybe, but still, I started in the real world. I didn't want to become an academic, and then I got tired of it because I had enough of it. Say, okay, so now I'm doing this on my own terms, not as an employee of Harvard where you have to publish X papers and become very performative. Hence AI. So let's talk about
okay,
AI. So I understood a lot more about the world thanks to Stephen Wolfram, a lecture he gave in our summer school. And his whole thing is, why did AI succeed when people like him and others, we were all involved in finance doing neural nets, which is basically what the large language model is based on. And we failed. And then we realized what was the problem, why AI succeeded, because we were thinking about the problem differently. AI doesn't have any toy model-like representation. So in other words, it doesn't have any abstract reasoning form of process. So there's no model to fit, in other words. It just has no idea what's going on.
Do you mean it has no preconceptions?
It's sort of like it doesn't have any limitations about what to add to get good output. From backpropagation or from all of these, it doesn't have this limitation because you end up having billions of steps. You see, so why is this important? Because when I take someone using rules, say an economist will come up with simplified rules, okay? This will do competition. AI doesn't know this. It will look at the outcome. And if you write to write a non-toy model, it would be a model with a lot of variables, with many, many variables. And it's very hard to add variables for us because you need a lot of steps, you need a lot of data. Every variable you add create more noise, you have to clean up. AI doesn't have that limitation. So it is sort of like a model that is I would say non-abstract, or far away from the most abstract representation. Like in economics, everything starts with the financial economics, the Alou-Debreu model, and everything falls from this abstract construction. And if it doesn't work, you see, it lacks a little bit of, or if you're in a specific case where this doesn't apply, the whole thing falls apart. And you see, when you talk to economists, they always have this very abstract reasoning. And AI doesn't have that. So AI can see things, it's sort of like fitting a nonlinear model or something. And we have enough data now. Of course, we're lucky to have, since we failed in 30 years of accumulation of data on the web, via Reddit, Wikipedia, papers, stuff like that, for the models to learn. So it is. So this is this absence of what I call abstract modeling, or what I would say parsimonious modeling is what makes AI really very potent, and it is reversing things that a lot of results that we took for granted. And then you check even with cardiology, the way people model the heartbeats, right?
Mm-hmm.
It sees things differently.
Mm-hmm.
So this is wonderful. And because I have a problem with economists, because when you take a book, you see, as I said, this is the library, and where I have Steven Pinker's book, I also have the Economist book. I have what I call the profane. There's a place where you have the holy and the profane. The Monday, so I have so they're not in the main room, okay? So you take these books in economics, and the Lemon Law reasoning, the cost theorem reasoning here. But then you realize that small little details change the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
You see, there's no representative agent, there's no theoretical human, and there are a lot of things that they do away with. Like, for example, this idea of people right to voting with their feet, if you have the right to change state. But people aren't going to change state because our motivation are different from what the economists think. Maybe someone is in love with a waitress in a restaurant who's married to another guy who can't change state because that's his existence.
Mm-hmm.
Or you have, it's actually the decision. Some people are horrified with the idea of moving. Right? And given how much time I spent to reorganize the library, I'm not ready to move again. So you see, there are a lot of things.
On that, like, people are rooted. They come rooted to a place.
Exactly.
That's all you know, Simone Weil. She wrote a great book about that.
You have, then they talk about friction. But like, for example, I saw things that are unexplainable by, they say, well, the competitive market competition should drive price down. I saw fund managers making 2% on assets, basically providing zero service. It was random plus transaction costs, so it's worse than random. And they're making 2%, and the model lasted 20 years. And I saw it lasting 20 years. It took 20 years before things compressed. Mm-hmm. Okay? Did you have competition? Hell, a lot of competition. Now, why is it so? Because no two situations are the same. And this is what AI is able to grasp. So sort of like a clinical doctor. So now let me generalize to the thing. If I'm going to talk about my most undervalued piece is on the reversive law of large numbers. So let me explain now science. Science works with law of large numbers, cause evidence. In other words, I collect a lot of things to eliminate the noise and the anecdote. To realize that if I ask people to close their eyes, stand on one leg, and have the honey that you produce, and I have a sample of 100, their ability to sing will, the Traviata will improve by 20% or whatever it is. Okay, so let's say this is the law of large numbers, right? Mm-hmm. It applies in large. The problem is that, so it works on the average, okay? The law of large numbers tells you that as your sample becomes large, the average will be freer and freer of noise, whereas each sample has variations. Okay, that's a scale transformation, by the way. The problem is a lot of people take that and reverse it. It's not reversible. By definition, it's not reversible. Mathematically, it's not reversible, you see? So I said about how to reverse the law of large numbers. You can only reverse the law of large numbers if your variance is very low. Let's take the average. Law of large numbers will tell you that that the average human has one breast and one testicle.
Yeah.
That's a toy model, all right? That's law of large numbers. That's the most abstract form, okay? But visibly it has high variance, all right? Because and actually now the single person resembles that average, right? Mm-hmm. For many, many things, even in medicine, that doesn't work. So I've been playing with doctors, and I've been publishing a lot of papers in quantitative sciences, in in STEM, in medicine, and a lot, based on statistical errors people make all the time, including their statistician. Reversing the law of large numbers is hard. You see, this is why a lot of things in economics, you study them, they may work, but you cannot reverse them to real life, because even though they may be true on average, overall, it doesn't apply to you.
Mm-hmm.
Let me give you another example. When they did IQ, they made many mistakes. One of them is to believe that they say a trend in IQ and income. So if you give someone an IQ test, they'd be more performing. The noise was monstrous, okay? So, 1, 2, they didn't realize there's a circularity, that an IQ test means someone is good at taking tests. So they're more likely to have good college degrees and be hired at higher income, all right? Mm-hmm. So let's ignore these circularities. They don't realize that if you're going to hire an employee based on IQ, you're going to have to hire 1,000 to see an effect. Because of variability, right? Because other things vary, and also it's like, sometimes you see a cloud and someone fits a regression and they believe it's a regression. It's the same problem of AI versus what I call toy model versus larger model. Mm-hmm. Okay, or the way Gig Renzer calls it, he said the small world, large world difference. Small world model, large world. The correspondence between them has always been weak, and I spend my life on working on quantitative problems linked to that. But AI, suddenly I saw AI work only in the large world and ignores the small world. And scientists can only understand the small world because the other one has too much texture and you can't express it. AI doesn't give you an equation, it just gives you an output. Mm-hmm. So this is where, in a way, it's liberating. And it's also, it vindicates you, because I believe that what most academics do, or most researchers do, is performative work. It looks like work, but it's no contribution if they sort of know it. See? And AI sort of can replace them easily and do a lot of better output. So it takes all these people out. But AI doesn't threaten creativity for one simple thing. By definition, the way these models are built, they're statistical. Okay, so in other words, they will never represent things that are not seen in sample.
Mm-hmm. They're
intrapolative.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
They're intrapolative, not extrapolative. We humans are extrapolative. Mm-hmm. You see, so you can see what's outside the sample. And have you interviewed Rory Sutherland?
No.
You must. Okay, so I've learned from Rory, and there's a lot of sort of like
y'all are good friends.
Yeah, but a lot of like thesis antithesis that goes on. You know, Rory tells me something, that I tell him, that he tells me something else, and then he sort of goes back and forth. So I figured out one thing in options, is that if you have any reason to buy an option, don't buy it. Because why? Everybody else would have bought it.
Oh, I see.
And Rory gave me the same version in business. He said, if the idea makes sense, do not invest in it. I said, why? It's because someone else, it makes sense to other people. Mm-hmm. So he said that and then you have a cemetery, survivorship bias of these ideas that fail. What's his name, in terms of what the name of the company? Coca-Cola tried to replace, a lot of people try to replace Coca-Cola. And you ask people and they tell you, yeah, we want better taste, more liquid, less money. Guess what? The only thing that succeeded had the exact opposite attributes. Red Bull.
Oh, yeah.
Smaller bottle, more money, and it didn't taste, and worse taste.
Right,
okay.
Right.
So AI cannot think out of the box by definition, but it's wonderful interpolating machine that does that better than humans.
It seems it strikes me as a tool, and it can become a dangerous tool if people don't appreciate that aspect of it, that confuse its interpolation with extrapolation.
Yeah, but it's okay, they'll go bust. If you misuse AI, you'll go bust. Plus, there's other things. It cannot be created because you try to make it speak like or write like someone idiosyncratic. It can't. And it can only imitate. It's a good imitation machine, and it takes the average.
So I use AI all the time as a tool, and yet I have a big beef with it, and it's a skin in the game related beef, and that my sense as AI is that this is a tangent or a short turn, but it's a product of ZERP. It's AI just is a whole bunch of people investing an enormous amount of money in a zero interest rate environment.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about ZERP. What ZERP did, it distorted the the investment environment from it used to be people used to say happiness is positive cash flow, and again, all these techno-feudal lords that we have got rich with that before ever making a penny. They were billionaires before.
Right.
Remember? And then because of the dominance, then probably because they were able to kill competition legally, they then start making money. I mean, Google, Amazon, they're all struggling. They were all financially, they're not doing well, but somehow, why? Because ZERP, zero interest rate, that environment transformed things from positive cash flow to greater fall. Greater fall.
Oh, right.
Okay. Because there was a lot of cash wanted to be invested. So now you find something that you can sell to some idiot. When we talk about the contributions of venture capital, you realize that they're good at finding investments, but not things that pay off in the future, but finding things that can be sold to some idiot and put in portfolios. So it's a musical chairs type environment.
In a normal, reasonable interest rate environment, that can be really, really, they're taking big bets.
But now we're starting to see the effect of interest rates.
Yes. Yeah.
But now everybody switched to AI. If you look at the rally that had happened, it's mostly AI related. And also with a warning, again, for people who don't know financial history or economic history or business history, that typically in the beginning, the pioneers always end up going bust. Practically
pioneers get the areas, settlers get the land.
There you go. Yeah. So to give you an example I often give is have a personal computer, a laptop here. A personal computer was Apple. They were dislodged by IBM. We were lucky to get that guy back. But the one who did the first portable computer, Sir Clive Osborne, went bankrupt. Nobody remembers it because people don't write history of bankrupt failed ideas. Car companies, like Detroit was decimated. Companies that went bust. And they were pioneers, right? And with names like, even your great-grandmother won't remember, if she's alive. So, and then you have, and take other businesses, take airlines. TWA and Pan Am, bust. They're gone. They're no longer here. Bust, I don't know, but gone.
Eastern here in Atlanta.
Really?
Yeah, Eastern was, yeah.
Okay, so, and that's product of an environment. What happened when you have a new thing, it's a very unstable, high volatile environment. So odds are you're going to get a new way to do that new thing. Another newer way to do that new thing until it stabilizes. And it's not until it stabilizes that companies can be secure. Forgot to say Kodak went bust. I don't know how pioneers they were, but there were a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you to give me your take on this, my argument here that AI, as we have it now, it is a product of of prolonged period of an investment climate that was, with artificially zero gravity.
We are benefiting from AI now. I don't know how much you're paying for AI, but you're paying for
it. It's like $20 a month.
Yeah, you're paying for little for what you're getting.
Yeah.
I have all of them, and even it's tiny compared to the payoff. Even when you pay the full price, also, it's tiny. They don't make any money. I don't know where they make their money, but so now we've been subsidized. Like initially, we're subsidized by these internet companies because they're losing money and the investors are paying the price, okay, with negative cash flow. I don't know with AI what's going to happen, but let me remind you the instability of this environment. The Chinese or someone else can come up with something different.
Right. I'd say that the investors are not going to make if they're overvalued, the investors won't make any money, but there are already investors who have made a lot of money without AI ever producing a return. They externalize the cost of their product development, and they externalized it via money, their cost of capital was artificially suppressed in a way that pushed the burden of that depressed cost onto the future.
Yeah, but so far investors are paying for it. One thing that I would say about another big thing I forgot to mention, so for completeness, is that there was a discovery of a few techniques, rather statistical techniques called transformers, AI.
Mm-hmm.
That allow you to work with blocks rather than steps, high dimensional object rather than steps. I mean, small mathematical improvement that paid off a lot. And we can have more of these, okay?
Yeah.
Because mathematics is largely unexplored field overall. I mean, we have millions of theorems in mathematics, but still opaque.
Mm-hmm.
So you can discover something, probably via AI, that may put us at a higher level. But the benefits of AI now are accruing to people like you. Mm-hmm. You do your taxes, AI. You want to find typos in your text, AI. Mm-hmm. But you want to do imaging, AI. You take your heart, your EKG and send it to one of the AIs, and you get a read. So there are some benefits. For example,
I used it for a structural engineering problem that would have taken a structural engineer weeks and thousands of dollars to bring, everything from that to, helping diagnose a mystery in my beehives, because I'm totally novice, all kinds of things.
Yeah, so I made a huge mistake with AI, thinking that it was going to displace the clinical doctor, mm-hmm. because it's more clinical than a clinical doctor even. The imaging profession, okay, mm-hmm. and all its variations. Accountants, lawyers, people who have to do groundwork, look into cases. And it turned out that, in fact, it saved me a lot of money. I moved to this house, and I had a few problems. HVAC, you call up, they'll be here on, I think, 4 days away, and that's the emergency thing. And you take a picture, send it to all the AIs, get a recommendation, try this, you try it. That was a problem.
Yeah.
Okay. So I had 4 or 5 such cases, especially with my bicycle.
Uh-huh.
So can you imagine how much it saves me to ride a bicycle? In New York, I had a problem with a bicycle, to drive to Greenwich, Connecticut, to get there, park the car, do this. So you waste 2 hours. Plus the time it's going to take the repair person. Mm-hmm. That's an emergency. You pay under the table to get it done right away. It took me 4 minutes mm-hmm. to fix it myself. And even in some cases, you can order the parts. So they have it. So, and now as a profession, like plumber, an electrician can be threatened, or
they
like,
can be much better at what they do.
Maybe, but
there's a lot to be said for tools, having the right tools.
I know, but I avoided the foreign interests and having recourse to a external help, where in the past I would have needed them.
Yeah, I would say on that, I think most great plumbers, or whatever the profession, they don't want to come do that kind of project.
Really?
They want to do the good projects, like the things where they're actually needed and valued. And
really? So what it does is, just like with authors, if you're
it eliminates opportunity for the
it destroys the
extractive.
Exactly. It destroys the person who is overcharging you to do non-innovative stuff.
That's right.
Because innovative stuff visibly is not only on AI.
Yeah.
So, but now let's see how the benefits side. Now, visibly, it's putting a lot of people out of work.
Is it?
Yeah, but traditionally, we've had situations like these with new technology, like word processing, eliminating the secretaries. I remember working for banks where we had someone whose job was typing up. It's typists. Eliminated, a lot of jobs were eliminated by technology. And these people
the spreadsheet didn't seem to have eliminated a lot of jobs.
It did?
No, it doesn't seem to have.
Yeah, that's the reasoning is that it creates other opportunities that will hire, and growth that will allow you to hire. Because think about it. Let's say you make tomorrow you get $100 million. Someone sends you a check for $100 million. I say, please spend it. What are you gonna do? Let's say I'm gonna spend it. I'm gonna go get a haircut to start with. You spend your $40 or $25, whatever it is. Okay, that's $25 going to the haircut thing. Because you're gonna get an extra haircut. No, you're gonna have. Okay, we're gonna go to Ethiopian food now. All right.
That's right. I am getting hungry.
Yeah, very good. So we spend. I'm going to spend, both of us in total, maybe $46 for an Ethiopian meal. I've never had Ethiopian in Atlanta, but those. Okay, so money that gets to that person, and then it will. So I think that general reasoning in economics works well. But I am always suspicious of stuff, of such reasoning, because, as usual with economics, it works until it doesn't work anymore, because there are no laws in economics. You see, there's laws in physics because the toy model has no variance, but economics has too much variance. Now, one thing that AI is not replacing, and not, that there's an immigration problem in practically every country, and every country that complains about an immigration problem is typically a country that has no choice but to bring immigrants to do jobs they can't do themselves, because there's nothing. There's no supply of bathroom cleaners in the United States. You have to import these. I'm sure you're looking around your neighborhood, you look at all the renovation. So every Ansley Park, every third house is being renovated. Try to find one single English-speaking person among these people. Right?
When I began my, working career as a teenager, working in construction, and it was definitely the exception for it to be a non. I mean, it was rare.
People moved up.
Yeah.
Well, that's what happens when GDP in a country goes up. Okay.
So this was in the early 90s, late 90s, or late 80s, early 90s.
Because the GDP of Georgia probably would have tripled since then. Okay. So of course people are richer. They're not going to work in construction anymore. You need to import your poor, and the country from which you're importing your poor will probably have to import its own poor. So that's one problem.
My instinct is there's more going on there. Like I think what is the
there's also labor laws. These people are worked 15 hours a day, voluntarily, right?
Yeah.
There's also labor laws.
Totally.
And these guys, in fact, are a lot cheaper because they work harder, longer, whatever it is, and on the sun. They don't care. And they're here temporarily, or at least in their mind. Yeah.
In those fields, too, we've also had, like, construction is one I know more about. We've had a meaningful decline in labor productivity in construction. Like,
Really?
we don't build houses faster now than we built in the 70s.
Really?
Or we don't build houses faster now than we built them in the 50s. And I mean, it's sort of everybody jokes about it, like the amount of time it takes to build the Empire State Building now versus then. It's like things haven't.
Maybe construction may be an exception, maybe a special case of something go wrong. How about lawn work?
Yeah.
Okay. How about cleaning bathrooms and restaurants? The problem of Europe is that they had to import their labor. See, because and to achieve economic growth, because the way to increase, economic growth has an S curve. When you're on top of the S curve, it's very hard to grow. When at the bottom of the S curve, you just bring someone from poverty to middle class, two-car garage, boom, you've achieved a lot.
Why is it demographic reasons? Like the
no,
declining fertility rate
just
that
like,
they needed?
It's just like the effort, just the way it's constructed. Someone has a two-car garage, right? What are you going to do? Have a three-car garage? Right?
Yeah.
So, and but if you go from zero to a two-car garage, you get a lot more. So it is like anything in nature. That's one thing. And I explain anti-fragile. Everything has an S curve, where you have the convexity in the beginning, like weightlifting, right? Weightlifting.
Yeah.
Getting to deadlift, say 300 pounds, that's 250 pounds, very quick. 250 to 300 pounds, probably twice as long.
Yeah.
300 to 350 years, right? And then 350 to 400 decades or something, whatever. It takes a while, to go up there because of decreasing gains. So the problem is countries that are on top of the S curve, like Europe and the United States, the West, they're growing slowly, but they have a lot of debt. Whereas countries like China or most of Asia, they're at the bottom of the S curve still. China can double its GDP just from bringing people from the countryside.
So when you say they had no choice with regard to the labor, do you mean to service their debt?
What happened is that you need to grow.
Well, you don't need as we were talking about before we started, you don't have to keep deadlifting more.
And deadlifting. Yeah, you don't have to deadlift more.
You don't have to, at a certain point, you're deadlifting enough.
Yeah, a lot of countries say you become comfortable. Yeah. The problem is, at some point, you've accumulated debt.
Yeah, you've borrowed money to be able to deadlift more.
And you start borrowing, and what happens, the most of the West has debt problems. And the way you solve the debt problem is by growing out of it. But you can't grow as fast as you did before. And the only way people have been growing is by bringing poor people from poverty to some kind of lower middle class status. And the problem is, there's another problem, that if you don't have these people, and this is what the current government, they're a little confused. If you get rid of your immigrants now, by saying, okay, who's going to take care of the law? First of all, the prices for labor would explode, for menial labor. And then you're going to have a neurosurgeon have to spend a day in carpentry and a day in gardening, and then 3 days in neurosurgery, right? Because that's not efficient. So the efficiency within a country, also you got to think about it across countries. So so this is where, unless you have structural changes in the way people spend their money, or some kind of huge robotics innovation, AI, or something else, unless you have that, the West is doomed. Okay, with low growth, high debt.
What does doomed look like?
Doomed means you become like Weimar. You have high debt. You can't grow out of it, and if you got rid of your immigrants, then your productivity goes down big time, simply because you're going to have your surgeon, your brain surgeon, sort of like.
Is it? I mean, it doesn't seem to me that importation of immigrants is a sustainable strategy.
That's the problem.
Yeah,
I think,
especially in a declining.
Yeah, that's the problem. This is where you're stuck in a situation where you put yourself in a situation where
it's almost like taking out another credit card.
Unless you have a revolution in robotics or something like that, you're going to have a immigration problem everywhere in any rich country. The Japanese have, tiny dwellings, and they don't have maids. Tiny dwellings, okay, and they don't have lawns, gardeners, and stuff like that. So that's how they escape that problem.
Have you been to Japan?
Sorry?
Have you spent time in Japan?
I mean, I've been there. I've been only Tokyo, like 5 times.
I've never been.
No, never visited a Japanese person's home. But I work with Japanese and banks and there, okay, and they have like 100-hour commute and sometimes they have train station time. And then at the time, there was the richest society in the world. I mean, the real estate was, the yen was powerful. Powerful. The Japan was powerful. The yen was expensive, and they were living like paupers. This is how they escape. They can escape that problem. But if you want to have lifestyle, unless you want to wash dishes,
what I'm hearing you say is that even like an extremely permissive immigration policy is if I'm understanding it correctly, is a Band-Aid to it. Like it can't go. It's not going to solve the problem.
No, but you got addicted to it because you got addicted to it. It's like
the hope is that it will solve the financial problem long enough for innovation to make robots that can do everything.
But innovation may not come, or other problems may emerge. Something may happen. So this is where when people talk about immigration, I tell them that even those who are financing these anti-immigration campaign and everything, they themselves have illegal gardeners and.
Oh, totally. Right.
Yeah. So even those voting for the policies, it's not something that.
I mean, I feel like that might be a little bit like when people criticize libertarians because they drive on roads. Like they drive on federal roads. Like, we live in the world that we have.
That's true, but at the same time, some of them have factories and are labor going up. So you can't really. No, the point is, for example, I tell you that I worry about immigration because it creates social tensions. But at the same time, I say, okay, you can't cut it tomorrow. Because if you cut it cold turkey, the way ICE is doing
disaster.
It's disastrous. And then the way ICE is behaving is also stupid because they're just being vicious for nothing. Instead of working structurally on the problem, they're trying to patch it cosmetically, and then they realize, hey, you can't extradite a lot of people because prices would go up.
A friend, I think it might have been this morning or yesterday, a friend of mine asked the question about like there's price controls in agriculture. It's like price controls in agriculture are not good. But if we got rid of all the price controls tomorrow, it would be disastrous.
That's true. I mean, we did that with California when they deregulated electricity in one block. It was a disaster.
So it's I guess both things can be true, like price controls are terrible, and dislocating an economy, even if you're dislocating it into the ideal direction, doing it abruptly could be totally disastrous.
Yes. So you have to find ways, for example, with immigration, you've got to find ways to rationalize it. You also have categories of temporary migrants. So you're happy to come in, but you can't stay more than 2 years and someone else comes in. So you can have that. Weirdly enough, Lebanon, now war and everything, we have a lot of Sri Lankans and Ethiopians and Filipinos working. And they come on a contract and they're not allowed to stay more than some number of years. And then they got to leave and come back a few years later.
Are the laws enforced with reasonable
100%.
consistency?
Yeah, because you got the immigration is very tough there because it's a small country. You can't just leave easily.
And I'm definitely no expert in immigration, but it does seem like we have here selective enforcement of laws depending on the administration, which causes a lot of strange dynamics.
Selective enforcement of laws. Yeah. I'm saying about China, for example. Yeah. They don't enforce some laws they have on the books, and then they realize, hey, by tinkering, this works. Okay, but there are a few other things you have to take into account here. Is that you have also to be human, right? Because you can't do things that are cruel to immigrants. And this administration has been cruel without economic benefits. But you want to have economic benefits without being cruel. It's exactly the opposite. As a matter of fact, we have reverse economic benefits. And one of them also is with when Trump got into his customs, and that idiot, the Commerce Secretary, who was actually my broker at some point, said, bananas. I said, bananas, you can grow them here. You're idiot, what do you mean? You're going to grow bananas in Maine? Okay, so the idea, if you're in Japan, maybe you're not used to eating bananas, but you're addicted to bananas, so what are you going to do, right? So you got to wean yourself. And there's no substitution because there's too much volatility for someone to invest, and it takes about 10 years of gestation just to start something. Yeah. So they don't get it that you can't do something abruptly. You just have to have a smarter policy in selectively saying, okay, what are the things we depend on for which we depend on foreign countries that are essential. Okay, that's a list. What? This medicine, okay, got to be produced locally. Coffee can't produce locally.
I know, it's an essential thing that can't be produced locally.
It's not essential. For me, it's essential. But then you look at medications, you look at things that are strategic, and then you start taxing things. And then coffee, you should, in principle, you're not going to have substitution, unless we don't grow tea, we don't grow coffee in America.
Oh, we grow tea.
Where? In the South?
In the South, and there's also, we used to be an enormous tea market, but it's still,
is it
a total tangent. But
is it efficient?
Yeah, I think it grows really well here. There's tea farms in Georgia.
Okay, so tea, you put if you have you can do a few things.
There's a tea farm in western North Carolina. It might be South Carolina, Table Rock, South Carolina.
The problem is if you do it too abruptly.
Yeah, right.
You can do a few things. Well, first of all, you should also realize that it is completely inefficient to grow products here if someone can produce them a lot cheaper elsewhere. That's the Ricardian. But the problem is that, again, I have criticism of Ricardian, naive application of toy model of Ricardian, comparative advantage, while at the same time saying the administration went all the way the other way. You see, so now we're ending up with a world that's dominated by China, And some of the stuff that we are protecting ourselves, from China, for which we're protecting ourselves from China, say solar panels, stuff like that, they do such a better job, and our industry is backwards. Electric cars, I have a Chinese electric car, one order of magnitude better than Tesla. I mean, so you realize, and they're not banned here, by not letting the Chinese sell cars here on grounds, hey, they may have some spying equipment in it. Maybe it's justified, but it makes you got to realize that protection weakens you, because it makes your fat cows. It removes the motivation there's no competition.
I would, on the other side of that, I would say my response to that would be, well, and also subsidizing a lengthy supply chain is not good. Like it may be more cost effective, or China could produce that more cost effectively, or Mexico can grow and produce something more cost effectively than we can in Georgia. But they still have to give it to us, and that cost of transportation is high.
Now with that oil crisis that we have, we just realize how we depend on the supply chain in many respects. Because practically everything's oil, right?
Yeah.
And everything's been in China, and we have this dependence on oil, on energy that we have to solve. So it's good to have a crisis once in a while, because it sort of like rebalances the products.
It makes you more aware of the balance sheet costs that you weren't really accruing for, that you should have been accruing for.
Exactly, but at the same time, electric is lowering the cost of, we have an untapped resource planet-wide, the electric energy. I mean, there's solar energy.
Solar and batteries.
The batteries aren't as much a problem as we think, because there's something called potential energy. But you can definitely have a lot of improvement in even if the cost of batteries goes up because of demand, because the way we make them is still dependent on some resources. But I think that we've got so much sun. Okay?
Yeah.
And you don't need to store too much. I figured out, for example, by having solar panels in Lebanon, you heat your water during the day. So you have hot water, and that's the storage of energy. So you heat up the water during the day. You fill up the car, of course, during the day. The car is a battery. And you're going to have a deficit at some point, okay, for which you need the grid, particularly in the winter. But you've reduced the demand dramatically. I mean, a drop of 10% in demand for oil would collapse prices. Somehow the oil cartel, involved a lot more people than those visible in the cartel, they've always maintained some kind of shortage of oil, tiny shortage of oil, right, to keep things in check. And oil is not just like we have refineries, not just like we're all saying the price of oil. The refineries also are a problem. I mean, compare the price of oil today. Look at. I remember when oil was $1 at the pump, and so you look at the ratio of when the pump to crude oil, and then you see that over time the ratio is going up. So not just shortage at the crude level.
Are the earnings going up?
Of course. Yeah. Oil companies make tons of money.
Yeah.
Every time we have a good now, they make tons of money.
Yeah.
And they don't pass it on to you.
Yeah. I feel like we need to do two things: continue this conversation over Ethiopian food,
Yeah.
and then if you're up for it, have another conversation.
Let's
before
see
we
the
come back.
reaction of our friends. Okay.
Okay.
Let's see the reaction of our
All right.
friends.
And
Okay.
hear what people
So
have to
that's-
say
yeah.
and continue this again.
Yeah, let's see the reaction of our friends. But or Ethiopian food, we should talk food. And it's not going to be $41. So I'm joking. Maybe now because the shortages and
Yeah.
the products coming from Ethiopia is far.
Well, thank you very much for
Great,
joining us.
thanks. Thank you. I'm very honored to be here. I spoke an hour and 15 minutes. It's like 10 minutes
I
past.
know, and I was worried it was going to keep we were going to keep adding another conversation that would never end. So until next time.
Okay, great. Thanks. Thanks a
you.
lot. Thanks.